changes in stress helps draw attention to meaning by emphasizing the most important piece of information. And Jim did a little of this yesterday, because depending on where you emphasize by raising your pitch, one sentence can have 7 different meanings. I didn't say he stole the money. He did it with Jesus loves. But listen to this. I can say, I didn't say he stole the money. I didn't say he stole the money. Somebody else did. Somebody else said that. Or I didn't say he stole the money. I didn't say he stole the money. That's not true at all. I didn't say he stole the money. I only suggested it as a possibility. Do you hear the difference in meaning depending on where I put the stress? I didn't say he stole the money. Somebody else must have taken it, not him. I didn't say he stole the money. Maybe he just borrowed it. I didn't say he stole the money. Maybe some other money he stole. Not that one, but some other money. Or I didn't say he stole the money. Maybe he's taken some jewelry. So it depends on where you put the stress that you're going to change the meaning in sentences too. Simple declarative telling sentences and imperative ordering sentences end with a pitch fall. He didn't see me. They saw Daniel. That was yesterday. I can't tell you. Turn around. Bring me the books. Stop that. Give me a pencil. Those are declarative sentences, telling sentences. They end in a pitch fall. But if you let your pitch rise at the end of a question or even at the end of a word, you're asking a question. He didn't see me. They saw Daniel. That was yesterday. I can't tell you. Turn around. Bring me the books. Stop that. Give me a pencil. You hear the difference between I'm telling you something and I'm asking you something. That was a hard thing for me to teach my students in phonetics class, because I would say, what does that word, how do you pronounce that word? And they would always say, Judy? No, that isn't where the stress goes. It goes, Judy. But they were asking me, is that word really the word Judy? They were asking me. So I always had to say, stand up on your toes and then go down. Judy, pencil. You hear the difference? It's called the difference between up talk and straight talk. And I think this is just a short little video that shows how in English we use up.
My name is Allison Shapira, and I teach public speaking and presentation skills. I'm going to give you an example of up talk, when our voice goes up at the end of a sentence, followed by what I like to call straight talk, when our voice follows a conversational arch and ends naturally. So here's an example of up talk, which I hear a lot at conferences when people introduce themselves. My name is Allison Shapira, and I'm the president of Global Public Speaking. It sounds like a question, like I'm not really sure that that's my name or that I have a right to be speaking to you. Now here's an example of straight talk. My name is Allison Shapira, and I'm the president of Global Public Speaking. Do you hear the difference? Allison Shapira, Allison Shapira. In the second example, my voice sounds more confident and more authoritative, which make me more credible as a speaker. So as you're speaking in public, especially if you're introducing yourself, when people's first impressions of you are formed, make sure that you state your name and your title with authority and confidence.
I'm going to show you a funny example. Probably we shouldn't, because it takes a little long, but this is how we speak in English now.
Y'all gonna like this guy. I like this guy a lot. Give it up for my man, Taylor Molly.
In case you hadn't realized, it has somehow become uncool to sound like you know what you're talking about. Or believe strongly in what you're, saying. invisible question marks and parenthetical you knows and you know what I'm saying have been attaching themselves to the ends of our sentences, even when those sentences aren't like questions. Declarative sentences, so-called because they used to, like, you know, declare things to be true, okay? As opposed to other things that are, like, totally, you know, not. They've been infected by this tragically cool and totally hip interrogative tone. As if I'm saying, don't think I'm a nerd just because I've, like, noticed this, okay? I have nothing personally invested in my own opinions. I'm just, like, inviting you to join me on the bandwagon of my own uncertainty. What has happened to our conviction? Where are the limbs out on which we once walked? Have they been, like, chopped down with the rest of the rainforest? You know? Or do we have, like, nothing to say? Has society just become so filled with these conflicting feelings of bleh, that we've just gotten to the point where we're the most aggressively inarticulate generation to come along since, you know, a long time ago. So I implore you, I entreat you, and I challenge you to speak with conviction, to say what you believe in a manner that bespeaks the determination with which you believe it. Because contrary to the wisdom of the bumper sticker, it is not enough these days to simply question authority. You gotta speak with it, too.
That's learning about what uptalk is or upspeech is. Questions you can answer with yes or no usually end in a pitch rise. Did they study hard? Do you think so? Is that all? Are you coming, Jim? Are you ready? Do you understand? Are you finished with that book? And they typically end with that pitch rise. Those questions you can answer with a yes or a no. Ask your neighbor a question that can be answered with a yes or a no. Just do it. Okay. Did you hear your neighbor end the sentence with an uptalk? Because she was asking a yes or no question. Questions you cannot answer with a yes or no usually end with a pitch fall. Where are you going? When can you fix it? Which one do you want? How much does it cost? What time is the movie? How do you know that? Who's there? Did you know that certain questions you always answer with an uptalk and certain questions you always answer with a glide down? You didn't even know that you did that, but you do that. It's part of how you learned English. So ask your neighbor a question that cannot be answered with yes or no. And remember to let the glide go down. And when they're answering yes or no, they're answering yes or no. But ask your question that begins with a who, what, where, when, why, or how.
Who are you? How are
Okay. Enough questions, enough fun. Some practice putting appropriate stress in sentences by focusing on the important word in a sentence. God forgives all my sins. So we're asking a question. Who forgives all my sins? What does God forgive? What does God do about my sins? How many sins does he forgive? Whose sins does God forgive? Okay, so I'm going to ask you, who forgives all my sins? Wait a minute, I go down when I ask that because that's not a yes or no question. So, answer me.
God forgives all my sins.
Very good, Dan. Does God forgive all my sins? Yeah, and you answered yes. Did you hear it? And I asked, does God forgive all my sins? Does God forgive all my sins? I should say that as does God forgive all my sins? I shouldn't ask that. I'm asking a different question. Does God forgive all my sins? That goes down. Can my teacher forgive all my sins?
No.
I should make that one go up. Does my teacher forgive all my sins? Is that right? Because that's a yes or no. Answer, no. Only God can forgive all my sins. What does God do about all my sins? God forgives all my sins. Does God forgive all my sins? Yes. Does God all my sins? Does God remember all my sins?
No. God forgives all my sins.
Very good. How many sins does God forgive?
God forgives all my sins.
Okay. Does God forgive all my sins? Does God forgive all my sins? Yes.
God forgives all my sins.
Does God forgive only some of my sins?
No. God forgives all my sins.
I go up with a yes or no question. I go down with a non-yes or no question. And you've got the correct prosody on there, emphasizing the correct words as well. Whose sins does God forgive?
God forgives all my sins.
Does God forgive all my sins?
Yes. God forgives all my sins.
Does God forgive all my teacher's sins?
Yes. God forgives all my teacher's sins.
Very good. Okay. We also need to look at pausing when we talk. Maybe you've heard this one before. It's called 30 Cows in a Field.
Okay, Holly, right, you ready for this? Listen carefully. 30 cows in a field. 30 cows in a field, 28 chickens. How many didn't? What? 30 cows in a field, 28 chickens. How many didn't? Thank you. 30 cows. Okay, you got that. 30 cows. 28 chickens. You got that. Right, how many didn't?
Okay. What it is, what are they talking about? 30 cows in a field, 28 chickens. How many didn't? Okay, 30 cows in a field, 28 chickens. How many didn't? Depending on where you put the pause. So pause is really also very important. Do you get it now? Any questions?
Can you go back to that? I wanted to finish writing that. You got it.
Okay, Jane said, is that Mr. Fogg? His name is Mr. Fogg. She's asking about a person. Or Jane said, is that mist or fog? You have to pause there because you're asking a different question. Put the pause to make sense. There's two different meanings between John said the boss is lazy. I'm not going to put the pauses in there, but there's two different meanings. Who's got one?
John said the boss is lazy.
Yes. There's one meaning. John said the boss is lazy. What else could it mean?
John said the boss is lazy.
Excellent. John said the boss is lazy. So it depends on who's lazy there. The big question is, who's the lazy one? It depends on where we put the pause. That's another part of prosody. Two people were in court, a property owner and a trespasser. The property owner says the trespasser should have known to keep out because the sign said, "No trespassing, no fishing allowed." But the trespasser won the case by pointing out to the judge that the sign contained no punctuation and it could read, "No trespassing, no fishing allowed." So he won the case. And this is a pause can be extremely important. There was a town in Bulgaria, I learned, that was not destroyed by invaders because of a comma. The general wrote, "Destroy the town, not spare it." He didn't write that. He wrote, "Destroy the town, not spare it." He put the comma or the pause in a different place, and so they didn't destroy the town. Interesting. Okay, combining pitch and pausing. I want you to figure out, to read this, put the pause marks in there. You've got it on your sheet.
Pause, you mean comma?
Commas, periods, however, or just a slash, I don't care. What does that letter say? Okay, I'm going to read it. See how many of you had this. "Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is all about. You are generous, kind, thoughtful. People who are not like you admit to being useless and inferior. You have ruined me for other men. I yearn for you. I have no feelings whatsoever when we're apart. I can be forever happy. Will you let me be yours? Susan." How many had it different? How many had it like this? "Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is. All about you are generous, kind, thoughtful people who are not like you. Admit to being useless and inferior. You have ruined me. For other men I yearn. For you I have no feelings whatsoever. When we're apart, I can be forever happy. Will you let me be yours, Susan?" So you see how important knowing where the pauses can go. If you're writing a letter to somebody, you better put the pauses in the correct places. So remember, learning the prosody of English is more important than any other efforts to improve pronunciation. Prosody helps the listener follow what you're saying, even if you're not saying the sounds the same as they do. You need to pay attention to prosody in words, in sentences, and in conversational speech. And remember that you already have that system. You don't have to learn it. You simply have to model it. If they do it wrong, you don't have to correct them. You just model it again. Otherwise, you're going to be correcting all the time. Let's look at speech sound differences, which is also part of pronunciation, and a lot of people think that's what accent modification really is. Different languages have different sets of sounds that are different from some sounds in English. Remember taking a modern language when you were in high school or college? And it causes problems for us to learn their language and for them to learn our language. Three brief examples: Hawaiian, Spanish, and German. Hawaiian has 5 vowel sounds and 8 consonants. That's all they have. They also have a glottal stop, which is You can do that. You hear it in British English too a lot. They have no consonant clusters, no blends. That's all the vowels and all the consonants they have. It's very difficult for me to pronounce some of their words, which are very, very long. For example, that's their state fish. It's a humu. Yeah, right? Yeah, humu humu, nuku nuku, apu aha. Good. Wow, you knew it. Try repeating after me. Humu humu, nuku nuku, apu aha. Yeah, and that's how Hawaiian sounds to me, the real Hawaiian language. That's how trying to pronounce the street names was for me. It was almost impossible. I have a hard time learning a foreign language because I don't hold on to sounds like that. If you look at the sounds they have, and some of you will know this answer already, but if somebody in Hawaiian says, Meli kaliki maka, and there's a song about it, Meli kaliki maka. If you look at what sounds they have, what vowels they have, no consonant clusters, they're saying Merry Christmas. Meli kaliki maki. Isn't that interesting? And we thought, what is that song all about? Oh, it's because that's how they pronounce it in Hawaii. Spanish, Rita can do this. Spanish has a trilled R and a tapped R sound. For me to learn Spanish is more difficult. Like I can say pero, or I can say, I don't know, perro, which are 2 different words, but we would look at it, P-E-R-O, and it would say perro. We'd say it without the trill or without the tap. Yeah? So we'd have to learn how to trill your R. Can anybody here not trill their R? Brrr. You'll have a hard time learning Spanish, and you'll have a speech sound disorder if you go to Spain and try and speak Spanish. German. How many of you took German? I took German. This guy should have had it. He also.
Das hier ist mein Sektor.
Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters.
Das Gerät, das Überlebensradar.
Mayday, mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Yeah, over. We are thinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We're thinking.
What are you thinking about?
German doesn't have the TH sound. Neither does Chinese. Many languages don't. And when you went down to, in Milwaukee or in Newell, Minnesota, a lot of the older people would say dies and dem and dos. They also would use hair as a plural because Herren in German is a plural, and I heard somebody here actually use hair as a plural, but it's not a plural in English. I won't mention who it was, but we carry over from our other language, and we have to learn different rules, and we have to learn different sounds, and we have to learn where verbs go. We have to learn all that, and you probably teach it or learned it as a written language. We didn't learn it very well as an oral language, although they tried. Well, vowels, working to change the vowel sounds will improve understanding of the words more than changing the consonant sounds. And both aren't going to be easy. Ultimately, it's necessary to change both to speak without an accent. Several, not all, examples of differences between Mandarin and Chinese. Some differences in vowels, we'll look at a couple. Some differences in consonants, we'll look at a few. This is what's called a vowel triangle. I don't know why it's called a triangle. It's not a triangle. But this is our vowel system in English. These are high front vowels. E, I. That's a mid vowel. A, A. Central vowels. That's the schwa and the and that's the and the at the end of words like butter. That's oo, o, ah. Some of us don't say the anymore. We say don and don. We don't say don and dawn. We're losing it. Some of us say God and some of us say God. We have a difference in our pronunciation. Don't worry about your pronunciation with the children. Use your pronunciation. It's okay. This is an oral English. And if it's your oral English, that's fine. This one happens to be a sound that's said like pak the ka. It's also in English out east, but we don't use that in the Midwest. So my students had to learn all of those with my accent. And I was from Wisconsin. So I would say, I have an Aunt Mary. They were from Minnesota, and they would say, well, I have an Aunt Mary. And they would say, aw, aunt. I would say, aunt. But they would have to transcribe me. And it was interesting when I would say, okay, we're working on that vowel. Transcribe the word Shadrach. Shadrach. Meshach. Transcribe the word Meshach. And then I would ask them, what would come next? Yeah, right. And they would know, some of them would know that. This was a public university. So I would say, well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who were they and what was that all about? Just, it was kind of interesting. And some of them knew Abednego, but they had to transcribe Shadrach and Meshach because it had the in it. Kind of fun. This is the same system in China. A lot of the vowels aren't there. Some of the vowels are different. And we have to look at what we say and look at what they say and try and help them get more closer to American English, to English pronunciation, if that's what their parents want. We looked at this already. I learned it beat, bit, bait, bet, bat. Then I didn't have to worry about remembering which was which. We talk about tongue height in vowels. Your tongue is pretty high when you say the E. Say the E, E, E. Your tongue is pretty high. Say You feel E, E, You feel it's going down. Your tongue is going E, E, You feel your tongue going down? So our tongue placement is different for different vowels. We also talk about tongue backness for different vowels. For example, E, the tongue is more toward the front. E versus oo. Can you feel the tongue raised more toward the back? E, oo, E, oo. You're doing something else too. You're doing the difference with your lips. Your lips are more rounding. When you say I or E, it's kind of in a smile. A, it's still kind of in a smile, but not so much. It's more open. Oo, or E, oo. You're changing your lips. You're changing where your tongue is placed. You're changing if it's in the front or in the back. But you're doing something else. Some vowels are more tense, which means your tongue is tight. Some vowels are more relaxed, which means your tongue is more loose. So put your hand under your chin and say E, E, E. Is your tongue tight or is it loose? E, E, E. Can you feel your tongue pushing down on your fingers? E, E. Now say I. You feel it's more relaxed? That's the big difference between E and I, because both of them are high front vowels. The big difference is the E is more spread, the lips are more spread, the I is a little less spread, but the big difference is the tension in the tongue. Do E, I, E. I. You know what? You're doing it right. You're doing it well. But teaching these vowels in Chinese are going to be really difficult because they have the E in the word seen. They don't have the vowel I in the word sin. So, what's the difference between I'm leaving and I'm living? It's the difference in that vowel. And oftentimes you're going to hear them have a trouble with a sound, the I, because it's not in their language. You really have to teach the I. Hard. And the one way to do it is under your chin. E, I, E, I. A difference between sheep and ship. Sheep and ship. Feel the difference in what's happening to that vowel? Sheep, ship, sheep, ship, sheep, ship. The E is held a little longer, the I is shorter. The E is tense, the I isn't. So you work on hearing the difference first. And you have to be able to choose the right word. We all seen every day, or we all sin every day. Can you hear which is the difference? They're not going to say sin. They're going to say, we seen every day. The young man had a lot of money. They're going to try and say reach. But you're going to say the young man had a lot of money. He was very rich. You're going to model what it sounds like. You've got to hear what it sounds like in order to be able to produce the difference. And you work on it with a description of the differences between the two vowels. Seen, high front and tense. Sin, high front but a little lower, a little more and relaxed. The lips more closed and spread like a smile. The lips a little more off open and not as spread. The E in seen is longer, the I in sin is shorter. So there's a difference between those two vowels. And if you need to have descriptions of them for some of your students, there's some helpful tools. One, and this is from the University of Iowa, they have pictures of what it looks like on the lips. This is the I, what it looks like with your tongue, how it sounds. There's also, this is in German and also in Spanish, if you want to learn the sounds that are different in the languages. But it will show you what it sounds like at the beginning of a word, invite and pin. We don't actually hear, although we're going to argue about that, we're not going to argue. You're going to say, when I say Judy, you're going to say I hear the E at the end. But I wouldn't let them put it at the end because E is not found in unstressed syllables, only rarely. So I made them transcribe it with an I, Judy. Because when you're saying it in a long sentence, my name is Judy Custer. I don't say my name is Judy Custer. It depends on where, if you're going to use the E, it's going to be in a stressed syllable. So, for the vowel in eat, the tongue is tense, the vowel is held longer. For the vowel in I, the tongue is more relaxed, it's shorter, but it's still raised in the front. Helpful thing to work on the differences are called minimal pairs. You get two words that can be pictured for kids, and the only difference between those two words is one sound that you want to contrast. First you say each word, maybe defining them. Next you say one of the words and the child points to the correct picture. Which word did he hear? You have to be able to hear it if you can. Then the child pronounces both words, making the difference in pronunciation. And then he says one word and you point to the word he said, if he's at that level yet. This isn't going to be easy to teach sounds. But here's some minimal pair words between seen and sin, E and I, eat, it. And when you're doing this, don't go beat, bit, because you're doing something different. You're also changing the prosody. And so you're going to say which one is bit, which one is beat, bit, beat, bit. Don't do that. So beat, bit, beat, bit. Make them the same level of tone when you're trying to see if they can hear the difference between the E and the I. Can you do it? Beat, bit. We want to go beat, bit. Don't do it. Beat, bit. Do it opposite. Bit, beat. Okay, that's it. That's it. And see if they can hear the difference. And then help them describe how to make the difference. And it's here in the tongue, basically. E, I, E, I, E, I. Loosen your tongue, and you'll get a good I. There's some, you can find other pictures. I've given you some URLs online to find those pictures. There's also 5 pages of minimal pairs from Caroline Bowen. She's from Australia. They have somewhat different words in here that aren't American English words, so be careful that it matches American English words. Teaching another vowel as an example. They're going to confuse the words dad and dead, and that's kind of an important distinction, I think. Chinese has the vowel in dead. It doesn't have the vowel in dad. So they're going to have to remember where that was on the vowel chart. Eh was in the middle and ah was lower. But they're going to confuse bad and bed, pat, pet, sad, said, because they have one of those vowels in their language, but they don't have it in another. So you have to actually teach where the articulators go in order for them to say it, or they can hear the difference, and they're so good at hearing the difference, they can make the difference. It all depends on their level of abilities for hearing that sound. I don't hear the difference. What is it? Cat, cut, cool. Cat, cut, cool. The first sound in there, cat, cut, cool. Cat, cut, cool, is 3 different sounds in Arabic. I don't hear only k, 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 because my ear is not tuned to the slight differences there are in Arabic, because there are 3 different sounds in Arabic. And I'd have to learn that they were 3 different sounds and where they belong if I were learning Arabic. So it's not easy to teach pronunciation of different sounds. They're going to have trouble. They have to work on hearing the difference first. So is it met is my son or mat is my son? Is it a diamond is a gem or a diamond is a jam? Is it Pat is a teacher or pet is a teacher? They're different words. They're going to have to hear those differences in those words before they can pronounce them. For the vowel in dad, the mouth is more open. It's not a smile. The tongue is a little lower, and the vowel is held a little longer. Say dad, dad. When you say dead, the mouth is a little more closed. It's not a smile. The tongue is a little higher, and the vowel is held shorter. Dead, dad, dead, dad, dead, dad. So again, you can use this to show them. You can also use minimal pairs where you're saying mat, met, what did I say? Point to the word. Or you can find pictures like bet, bat, what did I say? Point to the word I said. Let's see if you can hear the difference. And then after they can hear the difference, help them maybe say the difference, and then they'll have to say the difference so you can pick out what they've said. That's how you teach sounds. Consonants. Vowels, the more vowels you can change, the more you're going to increase intelligibility in another language. But there are consonant differences, as you heard about I'm sinking. Well, what are you thinking about? You heard there's a very important difference in certain consonants. This is English consonants, and there are differences in all these are differences from English consonants in Chinese. They either don't have them, they slight them, they don't put them at the ends of words. There are differences in the Chinese language with all those consonant sounds. So we're going to look at phoneme differences in consonants, sound differences. There are sounds that are close, but they're not quite the same. We're going to look at a few of them. The h sound, the h, is said more gutturally, almost like you're saying lach, lach, the German lach. It's not just breathing out. It's more guttural. Is that right? So that would be a sound you could possibly teach, because although you can't see it, it's very easy to say, okay, I just want you to breathe. That's the sound. It's not, it's hat, had, happy, not had. I can't do the Chinese. It's a little more guttural. It's just breathe and then add the end of the sound. Happy, had, hat. That might be a sound that we can work on a little bit. The S followed by an E is sort of like how the E vowel is sort of like they say thank you, but I can't do it. When I say thank you, it doesn't come out like it's supposed to. Say thank you in Chinese.
谢谢.
I can't do it. You hear?
The thank you, the word, this one is not in Chinese. So many Chinese people have very difficult time to learn thank you, the first sound.
Yeah, and we're
So
getting.
They don't have that.
I know, and
They don't have that.
and we're starting with that sound.
Sorry. They tend to say thank you.
Thank you. Yep, yep. And that's why we're choosing that one. There's also voicing differences. They don't have voice stops like b, d, g, and fricatives z, v, z. They don't have those in their language. They'll substitute a voiceless sound. So you have to show the difference between voice on and voice off. Say, in English, say z, hold here. Z, is your voice on or off? Say s, is your voice on or off? So you're also going to have to teach differences in whether the voice is on or off. And we're not going to get to all of these at all. I'm just showing you. There's no consonant clusters, so they're going to have trouble putting like please together because they don't have consonant clusters in their language. That's common in a lot of languages, including Hawaiian. They don't have affricative sounds, affricate sounds, like in ch and j. So Jesus might not come out with that j sound unless you model it and they start to imitate it. This one, they don't have th sounds, either voiced or voiceless. We have voiced th sounds like think and thin. We have those are voiceless. We have voiced ones like this and that. They don't have. So it's like this and that, just like in German, and it's just like in a lot of African language too. So you hear the D's and dem and do's in a lot in the African community. It's not that they're corrupting our language. It's because when they came from Africa, that was how they assimilated into American English by using their own sound system. The Germans did it too. D's and dat and dem and do's. That's very German. Very, very Black English too. And it's not like they can't learn these and that and them and those. It's just they didn't have it in their original language. The sh is very difficult, and the r is a semivowel, like in carry, is difficult. I wouldn't even bother with the r. You have a really good r, and you must have worked really hard on it. Is that right?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. The r is not an easy sound to teach, but if I said carry or kewi, you knew what I'm saying if I use it in context. Will you please kewi this for me? You'll know what I'm saying. Either I'm from out east, where they don't have a lot of the R's either, or I say W for R. Well, it's okay, you still understood the word at this point. When they get more experienced and more practice than we're ever going to give them, they can get into an accent modification class and start to, okay, I'm going to work on all of those. We're not. We're not going to listen to this. Syllables ending with consonants. Mandarin syllables typically don't end with a consonant, except N and NG. Oh wow, we have a lot of words that end in consonants, don't we? Hat, bad, lots of them. So our voice consonants typically don't occur. And voice consonants at the end of words will be difficult. They may omit the sound in the English word. They may devoice the final consonant because that was closer to what they have. And they might add a schwa at the end. They might say had, making it 2 syllables, or hatta, making it 2 syllables. And they omit other voice consonants. The O might become an O, like, what's a, yeah.
Might be remind our teachers that in our Chinese we don't have t, d. If students, you teach them English to pronounce such as the word student, they like to pronounce as student. At first of all, d, stew, which is a stew, but it says two. Another student, we got the t
Yep.
here in English, but in Chinese we don't have. So many of my students, they tend to just forget it. They say student.
Yep,
They
student.
don't say student.
And student, because they have an N at the end of the
And
words.
they don't have that.
They have the N, and they'll say it at the end of a word, but they don't have the T. So you're going to hear a lot of pronunciation differences. But if you're working on the prosody, you're going to be working on intelligibility much easier. There are some consonants that you want to work on too. But modeling English consonants rather than saying this is how you have to do it, there's just too many, too confusing. My approach for consonants in these Bible stories, we're going to start incorporating pretty easy to teach sounds, the TH sounds, because you can see it, you can feel it. And the H sound because it's just breathing. And we're not going to be concerned with close examples between English and Chinese. For the S, it's different. I can't get the Chinese S sound, but I can understand, and you can understand if I say "say." You can understand what I'm trying to say. I didn't say it right, but she understood it. I was trying to say thank you. Also incorporate keywords, and we're going to be doing that a lot. Like thank you, thank you. There's the TH. We're going to work on that. Thank you. And we're not going to worry about the K at the end of the word thank. We're going to put it at the beginning of the next word. Thank you. Thank you. Because you're going to hear it as thank you. You're going to hear it that way. But they put that sound at the beginning of a word because they don't have it at the end of the word. So you're saying thank you. And they've got it. That's a really good way to say that word, demonstrating it. And if they add a schwa vowel at the end, we'll model single syllable words, not adding a schwa because we're adding a syllable. Remind them of keywords. It's not sheepa, it's sheep. And they're going to have trouble with a P at the end. If they get a P in there at all, they might add a schwa at the end. And so model sheep, sheep, instead of sheepa, because you're saying 2 syllables. Can you make it only 1 syllable? Sheep. That's why we talked about syllables earlier. There are over 3,800 minimal pair words on this other sheet, on this other page. These are all these are all consonant syllables, minimal pairs. They also have vowel syllable pairs. There's another one by a man in England that I used to use, but you have to be careful with some of the minimal pairs you use on his for E and I, because I would say, okay, what's the minimal pair for between E and I? I and E, like in beat and bit. What's the minimal pair for sheet? And we don't want to use that word. Or beach, and we don't want to use that minimal pair. So be careful of the minimal pair. It's shit and bitch. If you didn't catch it. I erased that part. So be careful of the minimal pair of words that you choose, that they're good words, that they're appropriate words, that they're words you want to maybe teach. Rhythm, that was the 4th part of prosody that we really hadn't talked about. It's added here because it ties so much with speech sound differences. Mandarin speech sounds more choppy than English because we tend to run all of our words together. and Mandarin syllables that don't end with consonants except N and NG, and connected speech is more run together. Remember those things, especially when you're listening to Mandarin. Connected speech, it's easier to hear the beginning and ending of Chinese syllables because they're more choppy. English speech is more run together. The sounds are more flowing. Neither is good or bad. It simply is. That's how the languages are. It helps to connect consonants at the end of English words with vowels at the beginning of syllables when possible. So, I'm eating. If I say I'm eating, I would tend to maybe put a little glottal stop. I'm eating between the two words. But M doesn't occur at the end of words in Chinese. So I would suggest to say, I'm eating. I'm eating. And then you're getting I'm eating too. Linking the next word that starts with a vowel. And that sounds like an American speech. Do you understand what I'm saying? It sounds more American. Here's a Chinese speaker of English, and it may sound quite choppy.
This recording, Jiangsu 5, is copyright the International Dialects of English Archive. Comma Gets a Cure is copyright Douglas N. Onroth, Jill McCullough, and Barbara Somerville.
Comma Got a Cure. Sarah Perry was a veterinary nurse who has been working daily at an old room in a deserted district of the territory.
He's speaking English.
So she was very happy to start a new job at a superb private practice in North Square near the Duke Street town. That area was much nearer for her and more to her liking. Even so, on her first morning, she felt stressed. She ate a bowl of porridge, checked herself in the mirror, and washed her face in a hurry. Then, she put a plain yellow dress and a fleece jacket, picked up her kit, and headed for work. When she got there, there was a woman with a goose waiting for her. The woman gave Sarah an official letter from the vet. The letter implied that the animal could be suffering from a rare form of foot and mouth disease, which was suffering because normally you would only expect it to see in a dog or goat. Sarah was sentimental.
So does it sound somewhat choppy to you?
Her feel sorry for the.
It's still, you can listen carefully, but you still hear that it's not an English speaker. And if you listen really carefully, you can hear some of the sound differences too. When he said first, he didn't say the T at the end. He had to put it in the middle. He had to add a schwa, first, and other things. And you're not going to correct all that. That isn't your job. Where you start improving rhythm, you have to concentrate on focusing on all the aspects of prosody, pitch and stress and pausing. When focusing on most consonants, start with key words. Visible, voiceless sounds first, like the you can see the difference. You can hear the difference. We may try and incorporate some key words like that have the final P sound, like nap, keep, deep, sheep, and try and get them to erase the schwa. Sheep, keep. But you notice they don't have the CH sound either, and their K and their P and their D are different than ours. Have the child repeat the word, then as a final word in a set phrase, like I can say sheep, I can say sheep, I can say nap. And see if you can not have that ending schwa, because you're making two syllables, you're making a different kind of word. I can say napa. No, that's California, right? I can say nap. Don't worry about getting the words into sentences and conversations until much later, if at all. That isn't your job. It's way advanced from what you'll be doing. Pronounce all the words ending in any consonant self clearly when presenting the vocabulary yourself, so they hear it. The more they hear it, the more likely they are to imitate it. Just remember, Improved prosody is very important in helping people who speak Mandarin Chinese to improve their English pronunciation. It will be easier to make some real differences in oral English than being concerned about all the speech sound differences that I suspect will take longer and more instruction for people to change. Now, can you pick out some of the differences we talked about just listening to the speech of a speaker of Mandarin? See if you can hear different tones, but it's not the same as pitch in English. See, you don't hear final consonants. You hear focus on single syllables rather than longer words. This is a speaker of Mandarin.
This recording, Jiangsu 5, is copyright the International Dialects of English Archive. Karma Gets a Cure is copyright Douglas N. Onroth, Jill McCullough, and Barbara Somerville.
Karma Got a Cure. Sarah Perry was a veterinary nurse who has been working daily at an old zoo in a deserted district of the territory. So she was very happy to start a new job at a super.
Wish I could stop it. Territory. Territory.
That area was much younger for her and more to her liking. Even so, on her first morning, she felt stressed. She ate a bowl of porridge, checked herself in the mirror, and washed her face in a hurry. Then, she put a plain yellow dress and a fleece jacket, picked up her kit, and headed for work. When she got there, there was a woman with a goose waiting for her. The woman gave Sarah an official letter from the vet. The letter implied that the animal could be suffering from a rare form of foot and mouth disease, which was suffering because normally you would.
He's a really good speaker of English as a second language, as a foreign language. He has to slow down for me to understand him better, just as you will have to slow down for your students to understand the information you're giving them. So remember that rate is also important. Jim demonstrated that very, very well last night. The rate is important. Don't expect miracles, even when reading, where there are visual cues, and after many group and private sessions, this is the most successful case I ever worked with in accent reduction. And she's not perfect, she's reading, so she's got visual cues. And I hope you can hear it in the back. Oh, probably won't hear it in the back unless I turn it on.
I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight did not follow in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong, that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke. And the song, from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend.
And I don't know if you could hear that in the back, and I'm sorry, that's all the louder it gets. But did you notice? What's very encouraging to me is when she corrected herself. I found the arrow still. She didn't get the still, but she got the L. She knew how to fix it. And when you see kids starting to correct some of their sounds, that's a really good sign that they're learning some of the sound differences as well. So what was the first important principle to improve oral English that we started with in the very, very beginning? The important principle is just get the kids talking, not just silent reading, not just watching, not just writing, not just listening to you. Get the kids talking in these lessons. And also know that the miracle that you'll see is the miracle that the Holy Ghost is going to be doing, learning from the Bible stories about their Savior and their salvation. Don't expect miracles in what you're doing to improve oral pronunciation, but what you do is going to be a good start for them someday. And may God bless our efforts and use them to carry out His purpose to bring many to know their Savior.
Thank you, Judy.